Welcome again to Maximizer CRM. In today's video, we'll be looking at email marketing campaigns. With a Maximizer email campaign, you can automatically send out a series of emails to a group of recipients according to a preset schedule. There are three parts to an email campaign, and we use the word template to describe two of those parts. First, we have the email campaign template or blueprint that will control the campaign. How many emails will there be in that campaign? When will they go out? And when will the campaign itself start? Secondly, we have what we call an email template that each email in the campaign is based upon. And finally, we have the message body that has to be written for each of those emails. Now, not to worry, this will become second nature to you in no time at all. But before we begin to build the perfect campaign, we have to check our permissions. First of all, if we do not see campaigns over here in our module list, we go to Preferences, customize the icon bar, and then make sure that we have a check mark here next to Campaigns. We click OK, and we click Save. Next we go to Administration, Administrator, we click on Users, and select the user who will be working with campaigns. We go to Access Rights and Modify User Access Settings, and right here under Permissions, we make sure that the user has the rights to design and use campaigns by having a check mark here next to Read, Insert, and Modify. We click Save Settings and then Save again. Finally, we check on Email Server Settings. But in CRM Live, there is nothing that needs to be done. However, if you wanted to use your own SMTP server with your CRM Live subscription, or if you are using self-hosted Maximizer Web Access, there is another page that needs to be filled out. If I click on Modify Options and put a check mark here, override the hosted email server settings, we come to this page, which is the same for a self-hosted installation. In both cases, you will need information from your IT support people to fill out the details here for your own SMTP server. For our own CRM Live situation, we uncheck here and we cancel here to come back to where we began. One other note, if you do decide to use your own SMTP server with your CRM Live subscription, and your SMTP server is set up with extra security so that it only accepts incoming traffic from listed IP addresses or your network, then be sure to call or email us and request the list of additional IP addresses that you will need to whitelist as part of that setup. Now let's go back to our main program, make sure we're in Campaigns, click on Edit, and look at the two different ways we have of creating an email campaign template. We could choose this one, Add Automated Campaign, or the second alternative, Automated Campaign Templates. This second alternative is a library of existing email campaign templates that can be checked out, as in a library, and used again and again. The first alternative jumpstarts you to the point of creating your own brand new email campaign template. Even though both alternatives will get us to the same destination and we can therefore use either one, let's go ahead and go to the library first. When I click on this option, I can highlight any of the existing campaign templates and review the description to see the intent or purpose of that campaign. Out of the box, Maximizer will ship with this first alternative as an example of a campaign. Let's assume I see one I like office relocation. I highlight it and click Next. This puts me into the place where I can look at the email templates that are a part of that campaign. I can highlight an email template and then click on it or its properties to get a dialog box where I can review every aspect of the structure of that email template, including its message body. We'll go over each of these items here in just a few minutes. Once I am happy with the email templates, I click on Next. I can either proceed to launch this campaign right away or simply click Finish. If I click Finish without launching a campaign, all I am doing is saving any changes I have made to that campaign template, including adding any additional email templates that I might have created. On the other hand, if I click Launch and Finish, I am brought to this dialog box where I have to enter particulars for the campaign itself, including the campaign start date. You will note that the program assumes that the name of the template will also be the name of the campaign. However, if I click Next, Maximizer reminds me that a campaign with that name has already been run, and if I want to continue using that campaign template, I have to give my campaign a new name. This makes perfect sense when you remember that you can search and sort by the name of a campaign, and therefore each campaign does indeed require a unique name. Once I modify that name, I can click Next again. This time Maximizer obviously accepts my new name because I am now brought to the page where I can select the recipients for the campaign. For now I will click No Selection because I want to customize the campaign template further before I send it out. I will click on Validate Email Addresses against the time when I have selected my recipients. When I now click Finish, my new campaign is now in play and is in the list of current campaigns. Remember that in this case I have selected a bona fide campaign template and given my campaign a unique name, so Maximizer assumes that I am good to go as is. Just a heads up, by the way, sometimes when you click Finish, which we had on the previous screen, it will appear as if the program is not doing anything, and if you lose patience like I usually do and click Finish a second time, you'll be told that a campaign with that name already exists. Not to worry. If that happens, just log out and log back in, and you'll find your newly named campaign in the list where it belongs. In order to customize the campaign, I click on it, and then I click on Edit. I can change the name again if I want. I can select products and categories, add a description, and play around with any of these other fields that you see here. But the one field I cannot change is the start date for the campaign. If I really do not want to start on that date, I have to click out of the campaign, delete it, and start over. I can stay in edit mode and click on Campaign Plan, where I can review any emails that are already in this campaign template and/or add new emails to this campaign. I will show you more about that in our next section. After I've made my changes and had all the fun that I can handle, I click Save and click out. Now let's go back to Edit, change gears, and make the first choice Add Automated Campaign. This time I will show you how to handle all the things that need to be touched, including all the tabs and other particulars in the email template. You will notice right away that we came to this very same screen in the campaign template library when we went to the point of clicking on Launch after going through the library. Once again, I could click on the down arrow and select an existing campaign template, rename it, select a start date, add in budget and revenue figures if I wanted to, and click Next. This would take me through the final steps we just looked at when we came to this point through the library. But this time, let's click New to create a brand new email campaign template. I click OK to accept a note that asks if I really want to leave this screen and create a new template. And look at that. Against the possibility that I may still want to base my new campaign upon an existing one, I am brought to the campaign template library. In the description box, I can see again the purpose behind any existing template, but this time I will click Add since I really do want to create a new one. Now as you can see, Maximizer is nothing if not persistent, since once again I am offered the chance to use an existing template. This time, however, I am offered the option of duplicating an existing template and creating a new name for that duplicated template. If I did that and renamed the duplicate and clicked OK, 2 steps later on I would arrive at the same place as before where I can launch the campaign. But let's stay on the first choice and create a new template from scratch. I will name this one Securing Your Investment Future, and I will enter the description as a 6-email campaign inviting recipients to invest in a weekend workshop on new investment strategies for emerging markets and products. I click OK, and my new campaign template is now registered in the campaign template library. I click Next, and I arrive at what by now is hopefully a familiar page where I create my emails following the pattern or template that is used for all campaign emails. Once I click Add Email, I am ready to create that elusive email. The first thing I do is give this new email a name, a description, and an email subject. For example, we'll name this the first of 6 invitational emails. We'll add this in for the description, and for the email subject line we'll say Hi, click on the ellipsis to select the recipient's first name, and then continue by saying You are invited. We then decide what kind of email this is. In all probability, we would consider this a marketing email, and Maximizer will test that against the consent from our recipients. If they have given us permission to send them marketing type emails, our emails will go through. If they have not given that consent, then Maximizer will protect us in respect of CASL, the Canadian Anti-Spam legislation, and will not send them. When you have a moment, take a look at the videos in our video tutorials library that talk about creating emails and CASL compliance. We then decide on how many days after the start of the campaign we want this email to be sent. When I am thinking through this element, I always look ahead to make sure that I am not sending an email on a weekend by mistake. For example, if I start a campaign on a Thursday and tell Maximizer to send this email 3 days after the start, Maximizer will send it out on Sunday. If I really want it to go on Monday, I will change this to 4 days after the start of the campaign. Similarly, we want to decide what time of day would be best for the email to be received. Let's suppose I want to put at 8 a.m. on the day that that email is sent. Maximizer will honor that time request to within a half hour or so, depending upon the quantity of emails in the pipe at that point in time. Finally, you need to decide what type of logging you want. You can log successful and unsuccessful sends, and either can be informational for future campaigns. Now let's look at the other tabs, and then we'll look at message body as well. There are 4 email spots that can be filled in. The first 2, from and reply to, are required in order for the campaign to work, while the bottom 2 are discretionary. In the from field, I'll select myself, and I'll do the same thing in reply, but take note that if I leave the from field blank, Maximizer will treat the current user as the person sending the email. If I leave the reply to field blank, Maximizer will assume that the from address, which in turn can be the current user, is the address that should be used. Whether you fill in addresses for these fields or leave them blank, in order to use the current user, any email address that can end up in those fields must be validated. That is, you have to make sure that the email addresses work. For the bottom 2, I'll use my email address again, but you will note that I have selected include in the first email only for both of those. You know what? Generally speaking, when you have seen one email, you have seen them all. And if you are sending out 500 emails, do you really want to get a copy of each one? That may be something you only do once. One of the nice things about campaigns is that you can add an attachment to any campaign email, and that email will save that attachment and include it when the email is sent. When you click on Add, remember that the attachment cannot exceed 50 meg in size. You can identify up to 5 unique landing pages for each given email activity. An easy example, of course, is the URL for our Maximizer website. When you include these landing pages in the message body of your email, not only can you direct recipients to places that are important, but you can generate statistics about how many times someone clicked through to those places. Now that we have the structure for our email template done, we flip back to General because building the message body is where we go next. As with the overall email template, you can select an existing message body or create a brand new one. We click More, and you'll notice that Modify is grayed out because this is a new email and there is not yet any message body in the email that could be modified. So we choose Select Existing Message. This takes us to the message library, where we have a number of choices we can make. For starts, there are several message templates that you can modify and save, or select Save As, rename, click OK, and then modify and finally save after you have made your changes. You can also create a new message that will thereafter be saved in the message library. If we click on New, we open a blank canvas where we can select a font, add pictures, add text, hyperlinks, tables, virtually everything including merge fields, while we create a message that will appeal to our recipients. We click Save and give this campaign message a new name, such as First Message for the 6 Email Campaign, and click OK. That message is now part of our message library. You will notice that we can also import text, But take note of the fact that what you import has to be a .txt, in other words a plain text file, or a .html file before you can import it. People will often create a message in Word and then save it as a text or an HTML file for import into a campaign email. But notice that creating a document in a word processing application like Microsoft Word and then saving it as HTML can often result in, well, let's just call it messy HTML coding. A better alternative would be to create HTML coding in an HTML editor and then import the raw coding into the HTML view in your email, which I'll show you next. However, if you do that, ensure that your editor creates a clean, standards-compliant HTML code. At this point, you click OK to enter that as the message body that you will be using in this email activity. Once we have done that, you will notice that you can actually click Modify because that's available now, and we can reopen our text and modify it further. And that is what we are going to do in order to add the landing page URLs to our message body. Begin by typing the link text to which you want to attach the URL and move the cursor one or two places past it. Then click on the Merge Field button and select the appropriate campaign redirect URL and click OK. Now highlight the Merge field and right-click and cut or copy, highlight the link text, and then click on the Hyperlink Manager up here. Paste the URL into the URL box, make sure that the link text reads the way you want it to, and click OK. Finally, adjust the font size and color for this link word or phrase if you think you need to. And if we go over to the HTML tab here, we can see that what we have done has been properly converted into correct HTML coding, and this is the form for the redirect actions to work. As I said earlier, you can use up to 5 redirect URLs in each email, and they can be different for each email. One minor but important note. I also mentioned earlier that you can import a .txt file into the message library and use it as the message body of your email. However, I do not recommend that because in that case you will not have access to these 3 tabs, and that will be a problem for the very next step I am about to show you. Now, in order to count the number of times an email is opened, you need to place the campaign opened email URL somewhere in the message body. Your first step is to decide where you want this URL. The easiest place is at the very top or at the very bottom of your message body. The reason is that you have to use the HTML tab over here in order to place it in the message body properly, and those 2 places are the easiest to find once you switch over to HTML mode. Once you have your cursor where you want it, type this. That special mark there, then IMG space SRC equals, quotation mark, square bracket, campaign opened email tracking URL, square bracket, quotation marks, and that other little sign that you see over there. Now look what happens when you switch to Display or Preview. Under Display, once it is properly placed, it becomes a very small image like this when you look at it, and it is actually transparent in the email as a recipient sees it. But even though the recipient can't see it, it will count every instance of the email being opened. What is helpful here, of course, is that we can see it, so we know to avoid it, not delete it or overwrite it or do something like that, while we continue to work on our email message body. There are 3 more URLs that you will want to place into your campaign email. 2 represent different ways to unsubscribe from your emails, and the third allows a recipient to manage directly their email choices. For example, click here, come up to the Merge Field button, and select Unsubscribe Single Email Type URL and click OK. And what we're doing is giving the recipient a chance to unsubscribe from this type of email, which is, of course, a marketing email. As a further example, click here, and again we go to the Merge Field button, scroll to the bottom of the list, and click on Unsubscribe All Emails URL, and click OK. This ends up putting a Do Not Solicit by Email item into the default key field list for the recipient in Maximizer. Finally, we can say click here, click on the Merge Field button, scroll down about halfway through the available fields and select Manage Your Email Preferences and click OK. You will notice that in each situation, what we are looking at when we click on the Merge Field button is more descriptive in a way to us than what the end user will see here. When a recipient clicks on this choice, Maximizer opens up a list of email types that require recipients to grant permission to use for soliciting them. In effect, this is a direct CASL compliance alternative for them and for you. When you have finished with all of these changes to the message body, click Save, and then click Close, and then click OK. We have now created the first email for this campaign. The second and subsequent emails will be built the same way. And when we use this campaign template again another time, we will already have those emails in place and available for modification instead of outright replacement. Our final task will be to add subscribers to the campaign, and we do this by clicking on the Subscribers tab up here. Using the Add button and search for address book entries, we can find our entries one at a time by putting in a last name or a company name and search. Alternatively, we can click Add from Address Book Favorite List. And then we can check through our favorite lists and find the one that would be most appropriate for using in our campaign. When we have that list, we click Retrieve, and Maximizer fills out the box here with the entries that we have selected as recipients for the campaign. One very good and efficient way to create a favorite list for your campaign is to do an advanced search to collect everyone to whom you want to send the campaign, select all of those entries that are a result of that search, and put them all into a favorite list. Then name that favorite list in a way that ties it to the campaign, kind of like I did here, by naming it Weekend Investment Campaign List. Please note, you can add or remove people from a campaign while it is ongoing by using those buttons. And when you add a contact to an ongoing automated campaign, that campaign's email activities will be sent out based on the intervals specific in your campaign template relative to the date you add the entries to the campaign, just as you would expect. As always, pay attention to the 3 best practices when you are working with emails. First of all, when you create that list of recipients and put them into a favorite list, make sure that the column setup you are using includes every basic and user-defined field that will show up in your emails. That way you can verify that all of your recipients are properly tagged with each field that will be used. It just doesn't look good for a recipient to get an email that references a field that is blank in their email. Second of all, make sure that the column setup includes the basic field email opt-in type. What's the point of including someone in a marketing campaign if they have not given you permission to send them marketing emails? And finally, you may want to set the release dates for the emails far enough after the campaign start date that you can test them by sending them to somebody who's friendly first before you send them out to the people who will be receiving them, so you can make sure that the recipient will see what you expect them to see. Now fortunately, Maximizer has built in a test feature for campaigns, and we will look at that right now. Testing the campaign is easy. We click on Edit to make sure that we're in the edit mode, then we click on Add and search for address book entries. We can search for anyone in the database, but we must select one that has a valid email address. I select Christina Donato, one of my fellow trainers. A very important point is that you cannot use the same email address for testing that you used for any of the 4 email addresses when you created the email template. Remember the from, reply to, CC, or BCC. When I made my selection, I click OK, and Christina shows up as the test recipient for my email campaign test. All I do now is check mark on Christina and click on Run Test, and I see the status is in progress. After you start a test, the recipient of the test will receive the emails in the campaign all at once, although it may take a few minutes before they are all sent and received. You will see under status that it's in progress right now, but eventually you will see a report telling you how many actions, that is emails, were sent successfully and how many failed. Normally, we test a campaign before the emails are actually sent out, as I suggested earlier, but you can run a test even while the campaign is in progress if you want. After testing, you could go back and modify the number of days after the campaign start date for the emails to start going out. I'll click Save now. And while your campaign is running, you will want to check to see how it is going. At any time, you can view the current status of the email activities for your campaign in the Campaign Plan tab. You'll be able to see at a glance how many emails were sent, how many errors you had, even information about how many of your emails were opened and how many links were clicked. After the campaign has run its course, take a look at the Email Campaign Response Metrics report accessible via the Reports menu. The report will show you all of the same metrics as the Campaign Plan tab, but will also provide some summary statistics like click-through and click-to-open rate. You can also drill down to view the open and click-through statistics for each individual email activity, so you can work to refine your marketing materials based on the response each email gets from your subscribers. Something else that might be of interest is that you can attach a campaign to an opportunity and subsequently measure how successful that campaign was for those opportunities. Here in the Opportunities module is where you can select an opportunity, come down here into the Opportunities key field list or default key fields, bring up to edit mode, and select the campaign that you would like to attach to this particular opportunity. We type in the name of the campaign, uncheck this box, Opportunities Address Book Entry Subscribe to the campaign if that's not correct, or leave it checkmarked if it is correct, and click Search. We find the campaign that we've just been working with, we click on it, and we click OK, and now that campaign is attached to this particular opportunity. We click Save, we go back to our Campaign module, we click on our campaign, and click on the Opportunities tab, and we can see an opportunity that is now associated with this campaign. Later on, we can click on Campaign Information, make sure we're in the Basic box, come down to Edit, and we can ask the campaign to calculate the revenue from opportunities generated by this campaign as of any particular date we choose. And of course you notice that right here in the Basic Information key field list, you'll be able to get some of the statistics from the campaign you've been running. When the campaign is done, you can retrieve a list of all the contacts who opened one of the campaign emails, or those who clicked through one of your email links, or who unsubscribed from the campaign. This can be really useful if, for example, you want to get a list of the contacts who clicked one of the links in your email but weren't converted to a sale, so that you can follow up with them. You can even drill down to retrieve a list of the contacts who opened or clicked through or unsubscribed from a specific email within your campaign. This is great if you want to tailor some personal follow-up based on how your contacts respond to your campaign. To do all this, simply highlight a campaign, click on Actions, and select the appropriate group. All right, now you have a handle on how to work with Maximizer email campaigns. Again, if you have any questions and can't quite figure out how to make them work for you, please give us a call. We're here to help you in any way that we can. Bye for now.